am Michelle Pegler of Gingy Makes Quilts, and I am really excited to share with you today a new interactive tool that I just made and posted online to help convert between different construction methods for half square triangles and flying geese units. So I made for half square triangles 2 at a time, 4 at a time, 8 at a time, so you can convert between them, and then also flying geese 1 at a time and 4 at a time, same thing. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of how the tool works, show it to you in action, and then also show you some actual blocks that I made using the conversion tool recently. So let's get going. All right, before I actually show you the tool, I just wanted to quickly explain why I made this in the first place and how it's a little bit different than other resources you're going to find online. I often want to convert my patterns into these alternate methods, especially when I'm making a lot of square triangles, like this block has a million half square triangles around the edge, something like that. I maybe want to use a different method. And so when the pattern doesn't provide those cutting instructions, I have to go out online, find somebody that's posted one of those charts showing me how to cut for different finish sizes, and then I'm able to change my method. However, I'm just really visual. I like seeing a picture, and I also like the idea of being able to interact with it, because those charts, while they're great, usually are just a set list of sizes, and sometimes they don't have the size you need, so I have to find the formula, do the calculation myself, and double check it to get the instructions and the sizes I need to cut. Anyone that knows me in my daily life knows that I am a huge nerd, and my day job consists of 0% quilting and 100% data reporting, data visualizations, things like that. So that is how I knew how to use Tableau, the Tableau software, to make a tool like this. Tableau is usually used, at least the way I use it, is more for enterprise level data reporting and business intelligence. Not really used for things like this, but you can use it, and that's why I went ahead and made it this way, because I knew it would be pretty quick. So let me show you how it works. All right, so this is the first thing you will see when you load up the tool. It is a home page where it lists all the different portions of it with each one of these links. You can see that I have all of the half square triangle guides up here at the top, and then flying geese down here at the bottom. So we'll just start at the beginning and take a look at the 2 at a time cutting calculator. So one thing I'll note about this tool is that I did not give full step-by-step instructions for how to actually build each of these blocks. I think there's lots of good resources out there on blogs and videos where you can see people giving those instructions. I didn't think it was necessary to also put it in here, so I think maybe this tool is more for intermediate or advanced users, quilters who know the basics of how these blocks are going to go together and really just want a quick way to calculate different cutting instructions. So I just give some really basic pictures here to show you what exactly you're doing. Make sure you know you're on the right page. I mean, obviously there's the title, but the picture is going to help you really make sure. So right now we're looking at 2 at a time half square triangles. Shows you have to cut 1A fabric square, 1B, mark the diagonal, sew on either side of the diagonal, and then cut across the diagonal to get 2 HSTs. But the really cool thing about this page is right here in this red text, it says specify finished width. And that's where you can change this to whatever size finished block you need. So maybe I need 4.5 finished HSTs. I can type that in, and you can see that the cutting instructions update over here on the right side. So now it says I need to cut a 5.5 inch square of A and B fabrics. Gives me some quick construction just in case I need a little refresher, and then also tells me how to trim it. I always trim my HST blocks. I know some people don't. I know some people use triangles on a roll paper. I really like to trim. Doesn't bother me at all, and I love the finished result to just be so precise. So for all my HST pages, I do have trimming instructions on here. But let's see, what if I want to make 4 at a time, the same size? I can click this link here to go see what I would need to cut. So you can see the pictures here updated to show the new sewing and cutting lines, and also my cutting and trimming measurements have changed. So if I was doing 4 at a time, HSTs that were all going to finish at 4.5 inches, I would need to cut an 8.5 square out of each fabric and then trim the units to a 5-inch unfinished square. Again, I can go look at the 8 at a time as well, get the same information for 8 at a time. So I get the pictures of my A fabric, B fabric, mark both diagonals, do the sewing and cutting, and here's the cutting instructions for what size I need to start with and how I need to trim it down. Let's go back to the home page with this link, and we can take a look at the flying geese instructions really quickly. So again, I have 1 at a time. Flying geese shows you how many of each fabric you need to cut, gives you those measurements, which gives you some quick refresher information on how to put it together, and then the final result. You don't trim down flying geese units, so this just tells you what the unfinished size will be as well as the finished size. And again, I could change this to be whatever I want. Not usually going to get in charts you find online is like 3 1/4 finished width of a flying geese, but this tool lets you do it. Gives you what you need to cut, how the finished unit is going to turn out, and you can say, well, what if I do it 4 at a time? Okay, so 4 at a time, same finished size. Now it's showing me the diagram of how you do flying geese 4 at a time. It's a little bit tricky. It gives you the cutting instructions, and again shows you the unfinished and the finished rectangles you get in the end. All right, so I've gone back to the home page to show you one other kind of bonus feature of this tool I made, which are all of these links that say fabric directionality. So I have one for each method, and it's going to actually show you how the fabric directions will turn out based on how you lay your squares together in the beginning for each of the different methods. So here's 2 half square triangle method showing you, if you put your bottom fabric oriented up and your top fabric oriented left, here's the 2 resulting HSTs you'll get. So I went through every iteration of those. Then I can also go look at what 4 at a time looks like. One thing I did note about 4 at a time half square triangles is that it kind of rotates all your fabrics onto the diagonal. So if you're using fabrics where you don't want it to turn that way, don't use this method. All of your fabric directions are going to run on the bias, and also you get bias seams, so you kind of have to be careful about the stretching that might happen there. With 8 at a time, whatever orientation you pick, you're going to get 4 identical pairs of half square triangles, and so I've shown those all here, all the different combinations you might get. And then I did the same thing for flying geese. So if we go to fabric directionality for the 1 at a time flying geese, we're going to get a similar graphic. I did make the note, this does not cover all possible orientations, just some that I thought might be helpful as a reference for how you can lay your top squares to get different resulting directionalities. And then also you can see the same for the 4 at a time flying geese, how you would need to lay each square to get certain outcomes. Again, I did not go through all the possible permutations of this because there are a lot. One thing I did note on here is that Karen Brown of Just Get It Done Quilts has a really, really great video showing amazing things you can do with directional fabric and the 4 at a time half square or flying geese method. So if you want to get tricky and do something cool, I would just tell you to check that out. This logo of hers is actually a link directly to that video. So again, if this is the reference tool you're using, you'll be able to quickly pull up that video if you need to look at it and see her instructions for making some really, really cool flying geese. And I think that's everything I wanted to cover. You may have noticed each one of these pages has the home link that'll take you back to the start. One other bonus feature of this tool that I want to show you really quick is that it does work on mobile. So you get a very similar layout of the home page. Sorry, the blurring and refocusing is annoying, but again, I can click on any of these cutting calculators and then go into the tool. I can see my cutting directions here, change the width. So let's say I want to do 2.75. It's going to update my instructions. So if I was doing 8 at a time, half square triangles, finished size 2.75, I would cut a 7.5 square of both fabrics. So same type of idea. You also have the same links in here, so you can go over to the 4 at a time, 2 at a time, the directionality grids also here. So this is all pretty mobile friendly if you don't happen to have your computer on you, which I don't usually have my computer in my sewing room. Usually I'm on my phone. So I have this bookmarked on my phone so that I can go to it really quickly, type in the size I need, and it's going to give me those cutting instructions right away. So that is everything I wanted to show you with the tool. Now let me go ahead and show you how I've used this on a couple of recent blocks. All right, so this is one of the blocks I used this calculator on recently. This is from the Socialites Quilt Along by Fat Quarter Shop, where they release one free block pattern on their website every Friday for 36 weeks. You may have seen a bunch of these blocks completed on my design wall before. Here's a couple that I made recently. This is the Friendship block, which was number 16, designed by Carrie Nelson. And as you can see, each one of these blocks has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 flying geese units. I have decided to make the 9-inch size and the 6-inch size. So when I saw the pattern required for each size, I needed to cut 16 little squares for each of the ears on the flying geese and 8 rectangles for each one. That seemed like a lot. And so I decided to figure out how to do it 4 at a time instead. Obviously that saves a lot of time in terms of cutting and marking the diagonals across and sewing and trimming and everything, but also it actually saves a lot of fabric. When you make a flying geese unit, you end up wasting about half of the fabric because for each one of these units, you cut a full pink rectangle and full white squares, 2 of them, and then when you sew and trim a 1/4 inch away, you end up cutting off about half of that area on each piece of fabric. So doing it 4 at a time is actually a no waste method. I was able to do it 4 at a time because I picked a fabric that was kind of non-directional. So obviously here is a solid and here is a pattern that doesn't really have a direction. So when they twist around, you can't really notice when you're doing the 4 at a time. So that's what I decided to do for this block. And as you can see, what I like to do is actually mark on my pattern. I cross out the directions that I don't need and I write the new directions. So for instance, for the 6-inch block, instead of cutting 16 little squares, I only had to cut 8 with the 4 at a time method. And instead of cutting 8 rectangles for the flying geese, I only had to cut 2 big squares. So that saved me a lot of time on this block. Kimberly Jolly does a live stream every Friday where she does a demo of each block. She doesn't usually talk about these alternate methods, so this is something you have to just figure out on your own, or if you use my tool, that should make it a lot easier for you. Let me show you one more block I did recently. Here is another block I used my conversion tool on. This is the Peace block, number 17 by Ann Sutton. I think this one came out last week. This week, who knows? As you can see, each one of these blocks has 1, 2, 3, 4 half square triangle components. And the instructions will tell you to do that using the standard 2 at a time method, where you would cut 2 squares in each fabric, lay them together, sew across the diagonal, cut apart, etc. I decided to convert to 4 at a time for one of these blocks. For the big block, you can see I used a very directional print with these lines. And I wanted to make sure that on the half square triangles, the lines ran the same way as on all these square parts. So I did this one the traditional method, and I used my reference guide for the directionality to make sure that I got the right orientations on the finished units. However, on a smaller one, I used kind of a non-directional print again for both the dark blue and the light blue, so I knew that if the pattern turned onto the bias, you wouldn't really notice and it would be fine. So I did the 4 at a time method on here, and again you can see how I marked my pattern, writing down my alternate cutting instructions for 4 at a time, half square triangles. All right, that is all I have to share today with this conversion tool. I hope you really liked it and that it can come in handy for you in the future. If you liked it, maybe you share it with some more quilter friends you know. If you can think of any other types of block units that you would like to see in this tool, feel free to leave me a comment and maybe I'll be able to add it sometime in the future. Really appreciate you watching, and please subscribe. Talk to you next time.